Hi guys, it's Monica. I'm here with another vlog. Unfortunately, I don't have a great background. I know it's very white and it's kind of boring. I made my bed just for it to be, looking a little aesthetic at least. Hopefully my face is good enough for you guys. I tried to do it outside, but it's been really bright lately. And even if I did it like under a tree, it just wouldn't have looked good. Or if I like had a background, a black background or something, it didn't work out so well. This is why I chose my room, because I think it's the best and it focuses on me. I'm going to be talking about The Producers, which was directed and written by Mel Brooks. It was produced by Sidney Glazier. It's an American comedy film that stars Zero Mostel and Max Bialystock and Gene Wilder as the accountant Leo Bloom. Gene Wilder is famously known for being Willy Wonka in the Willy Wonka and Chocolate Factory. We have also Dick Shawn and Lorenzo St. Dubois, known as LSD, and Kenneth Mars as Franz Liebkind, a German Nazi. I don't speak German, so I kind of butchered that name a little bit. This movie, as Mel Brooks' hit for directing a movie, and he received an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. Many years later, the film was preserved in the National Film Registry, and it was number 11 on the AFI's 100. So it's 100 years, which is the 100 Laughs list. The movie was released on November 22nd, 1967, with a budget of $941,000, but it made $1.6 million at the box office. So let's talk about the summary of the movie. We have Max Bialystock. He used to be big hotshot on Broadway, but is now washed up and becomes a greedy Broadway producer who supports himself and his upcoming films by seducing wealthy old ladies for their money. Leo Bloom, who is an accountant, meets Max and is highly hysterical and nervous and discovers that Max used $2,000, the film's funds, incorrectly. So Max urges him to hide the fraud and just change some of the numbers. Leo then thinks of an idea that the producer can make a lot of money with a flop, then a hit, by overseeing shares in the production that no one will audit the books if they lost money. Max immediately takes advantage of this and creates a plan to sell shares at a large scale and produce a play that everyone will hate. And it'll close on opening night so they can avoid payouts and leave to Rio de Janeiro with their money. Leo's pretty nervous, actually, about the crime, but eventually Max gets him to go along with it, and after reading so many bad plays, they eventually find a play called Springtime for Hitler that's a love letter to Hitler written by Franz Liebkind. Again, I butchered the last name to it, who is played by Kenneth Mars. They get the stage rights from Franz, and then to make sure this play is a flop, they talk to Roger Debris, played by Christopher Hewitt, where most of his plays close on the first day of rehearsal. So everything should go according to plan. The Hitler in the play is played by Lorenzo St. Dubois, LSD, who's played by Dick Shawn, and he can barely remember any of his lines, and is a charismatic flower power hippie. Max is able to sell 25,000% of the play to regular investors. The result of the play is an upbeat and tasteless play where it celebrates Nazi Germany, and at first the audience is in disbelief, and Max and Leo are confident that's a flop. But then the audience watches LSD's hilarious portrayal of Hitler, and this doesn't help Max in Leo's cause, because the investors would expect a larger financial return. Franz is angry because he's loyal to Germany, and the play mocked that. So he confronts Max and Leo and tries to kill him and himself, but it fails altogether. All three of them create a plan to blow up the theater and end the production, but then they get injured and arrested and found guilty by the jury. Before sentencing, Leo makes a really sweet statement and praises Max for changing his life. And Max tells the jury that he's learned his lesson. But Max, Leo, and Franz are sent to the state penitentiary, and they produce a new play called Prisoners of Love, which proves to be worse than Springtime for Hitler, actually, because they're trying to strive to actually make a good play instead of a bad one. And Max and Franz oversee the rehearsals while Leo continues the old scam and oversells shares to the prisoners and even the warden. The end of the movie is the song The Prisoners of Love, and then the credits roll, and then that's the end of the movie. Here's some analysis of the movie. Mel Brooks does a great job of making sure to avoid the subject of Judaism, where the two men's own Jewishness is part of how he got away with the outrageousness of the entire movie. In the movie, the director is called Roger Debris, which is a clear joke about circumcision. The crazy and funny dialogue between Max and Leo is still incredible after so many years because their madness is most spectacular when Leo has an anxiety attack while lying on the floor and he's convinced that Max will jump on him. The hysteria and belief runs through the entire movie into the Nazi player and issues that were happening during the 60s. This movie does display how gay men and women are portrayed. Mel Brooks has a modern twist and a modern thought on how he brought up and what was going on in the 60s and the movements, but he was still a bit conservative and square, if that makes any sense. Everyone has their own interpretations about this, but this is my interpretation. He was in tune with the 60s liberation, but the movie did objectify and stereotype women and the LGBTQ community. And one can interpret that the movie is homophobic, but then others can state that this movie really did bring up issues and what was going on with the liberation in the 60s. In some ways, I still think that it did objectify and stereotype people, but I don't think this movie is homophobic because I think it's making fun of absolutely everyone. We see that he's making fun of the old ladies and how the older you get, the less prettier you get. He also makes fun of the rich white people and their snooty attitudes. Mel Brooks tries to bring in humor that we all have some like awkwardness or something different about us compared to the next person. But that's what makes us who we are, and we see this in every character. I don't know if you guys noticed, but every single person has owned their character. Leo's character was a bit much, but we can all relate to how anxiety and hysteria feels. The gay guys definitely embraced their gayness, and the old ladies definitely embraced their old sexual self. Ula is played by Lee Meredith, who is seen throughout the movie as a woman who eventually finds her purpose and eventually nails her job as a secretary, even though she is stereotyped because she's a woman, but she does find her purpose and eventually does nail her character, really. Every single person in the movie has their own quirkiness and brought it out in the most outrageous way and definitely owned it. I did a bit of research and found that Mel Brooks does not want to cause any harm, but is known to push boundaries. It wants people to laugh at themselves rather than be offended. I think we should be able to laugh at ourselves on who we are and embrace it. The producers still holds up even today, and you find yourself laughing in the most uncomfortable situations.